Welcome inside the Woody Hayes Athletic Center, where Ryan Day and Jim Knowles had their weekly press conference on Tuesday, looking ahead to Ohio State's only home night game of the season against Michigan State, which, quite frankly, there wasn't a lot of talk about Michigan State today. Michigan State has not been a good team this year. Ohio State favored to win that game by more than 30 points, and so not really expecting a competitive game in the shoe this weekend, but still plenty for this Ohio State football team to address. And right now, I think that starts with special teams, because another notable special teams miscue against Rutgers this past weekend, where Jesse Mirko took off and ran the ball in a situation where he wasn't supposed to run the ball. And Ryan Day has said that stems back to communication. And when he was first asked about it, he specifically said, but the coaches need to do a better job of communicating those things to the players. And while he then did defend Parker Fleming when he was asked about Parker Fleming, you get the sense, based on his first response, that he's not necessarily pleased with where the special teams are right now, and that he is expecting more out of that unit. And while Ryan Day did say that starts with him, I think a lot of that starts with Parker too, as the special teams coordinator.
Right, and it was interesting to hear Day say that a lot of coaches have a hand in the special teams, even though, there aren't many teams in college football that have a dedicated special teams coach like Parker Fleming does. Got an extension and a raise this offseason. Day was asked directly about that today and said he still likes the way Parker Fleming teaches, likes the way he coaches, so to speak. But it's just, you have to get that better execution like Day is talking about, and better communication. I mean, that's something that's even stemmed back to last year when you think about the botched fake punts they had down the stretch in some important games. So definitely special teams is an issue that Ohio State needs to keep working to correct, and we'll see if Parker Fleming and company can figure it out as the year goes on.
Yeah, realistically, the special teams just haven't been as good as they should be at Ohio State, especially when you do have a full-time special teams coordinator. So I think there's certainly some heat on Parker Fleming right now to shore up some of those issues, and maybe even make some big plays on special teams, because we haven't really seen Ohio State make any big plays on special teams. We've seen them make some mistakes, but it's certainly been the phase of a game that has not been Ohio State's strongest so far this year. So certainly something where these next couple weeks against Michigan State and Minnesota, you want to work through some of those kinks before that big game, of course, coming up at the end of a month against Michigan. Another priority going into that Michigan game certainly is going to be trying to get as healthy as possible, and there are a lot of players on this Ohio State team dealing with injuries right now. 5 of them in particular this past weekend: Denzel Burke, Lathan Ransom, Cade Stover, all missed that game, while Josh Proctor and Tommy Eichenberg left the game with injuries. Seems like Cade Stover, Josh Proctor should both be back on the field this week against Michigan State. Things seem a little bit murkier for the other three. Ryan Day did say, though, that he expects Denzel Burke and Tommy Eichenberg to be back on the practice field Tuesday. Lathan Ransom, however, will not be back on the practice field yet. So I would say it's pretty unlikely that we'll see Lathan Ransom play this week. Denzel Burke and Tommy Eichenberg still to be determined.
Right. When they talked about Lathan Ransom today, it was more of like they're still in the process of figuring out where his status is, so probably still not a timeline behind the scenes on Lathan. Would lend credence to, he's probably almost certainly not going to play this week. But I think this is a week you can afford to rest guys, right? This is a Michigan State team that has had very little success on the offensive side, a program in a bit of turmoil after Mel Tucker was fired earlier this year amid sexual harassment allegations. So this is a time when, if Tommy's not fully ready to play, if Denzel's not fully ready to play, you can afford to stick with the backups. I mean, Jermaine Matthews has played very well. Cody Simon has played very well. Malik Hartford, even back deep at safety, has shown you some things. So really not a week that you need to press those guys into service, and it's so important to have them at their best when you take on Michigan 2 weeks after Saturday.
Like we said, not a game this week that we expect to be super competitive, but nevertheless still an important week for Ohio State to continue getting better, to continue working toward that end of the month. And I think it's going to be a great environment in the shoe. It's going to be a home night game. Ohio State's going to be wearing its gray alternate uniforms. So we're certainly looking forward to being there covering it. We're sure you're looking forward to watching it Saturday night, whether you're in the shoe or watching on NBC. And we will have full coverage all week leading up to that game, during the game, after the game on 11warriors.com.